and we are very glad to have you with us today. It's been a fascinating journey. I've been reading some of your writings, watching some of your videos that you share with me on WhatsApp, and I can see that you're as passionate about the learning and development space as I am. And I'm very glad to have you on this experience conversation with us today. So welcome once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome. Pleasure, and privilege hosting you. And without further ado, I would like to straight away jump into understanding more about your journey. It's been a long journey in the space of HR and organization development, learning and development. I want to ask you what inspired you to kind of choose to be in the HR and OD field?
That's a great question. So I think you talked about my passion for learning and development. So
Right.
my fundamental belief is I'm a student in the journey of life.
Very nice.
And that belief drives my passion towards
Right.
learning and development.
Right.
Right from my childhood, I had an inherent desire to make a difference
Right.
to the world. It was my inherent desire to make an impact to people that I come in contact with.
Right.
I think it's that desire. I think that desire existed, but I had no idea in my childhood how can really I can make a difference. But as I
Right.
grew up, I kind of continued my studies and then got into my professional space. And then started with few jobs here and there. I was into a sales role, into business development, into marketing, into channel partner management, etc. Before I landed up in a training company in the business development role. So that was my entry into learning and development indirectly, but I was not in the core training and development. I was in the business development for that organization.
Right.
But I think that's where I had my exposure to learning and development.
Brilliant.
And I realized that's my calling, that's my passion, and this is a fantastic way to make a difference.
Right.
Learning and development can provide an opportunity for you to enable people. And I saw that as an opportunity, latched onto it, never looked back after that, spent more than 20 years in this space now.
Okay. Very nice. And what are those transitions that you felt on this journey in the space of HR? I know you moved from business development to HR. So moving from business development to learning and development, what is it that kind of what is that transformation? What triggered that transformation?
I think the fact that I joined this training organization in the
Hmm.
business development role,
Hmm.
and then slowly got an exposure to this training, learning and development space.
Right.
And I think once I realized that this is my passion, this is my calling, and then I slowly shifted from core business development to the learning and development domain.
Right.
The transition was difficult and easy at the same time. It
Right.
was easy because of the passion, difficult because it was a different domain altogether.
True.
This required me to put my efforts, build my expertise, work through my way to kind of get in there slowly but steadily.
Right.
And this transition, not just from that business development role to the L&D space, I think even after I moved into L&D space, I
Right.
think for the last 2 decades, it has been a period of transition and transformation because this space has been evolving.
Right.
It's just evolving so much. I think I remember that when we started the journey, this was called training.
Right.
Today it is called learning.
And how long back was that?
So I think 2 decades ago,
2 decades ago.
organizations did not have a role called learning and development or even training and development. Training and
Right.
development was a subset of the larger HR function.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Today is a specialized area. As a highly specialized area is an enabling function in organizations.
I like
Uh,
the words you're using.
And really making organizations successful, it's an important cog in the wheel.
Right.
And organizations today can't do without this. And I think when we talk about learning organizations, organizations really, like individuals, organizations also need to learn and then keep pace.
Right.
They need to be ahead of the curve if they really want to be ahead of competition, survive and thrive. So learning is a key enabler.
Very nice. And I like that word that you're using, that learning enables people and human potential, right? And yet, what I see in the field of HR and what I see in the field of HR and OD in most organizations, as a corporate trainer, as a leadership coach, is that learning and development is treated like a tick in the checkbox, right? Rather than seen as serious investing in people, because when you invest in people, they deliver higher productivity and higher, better results. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think some organizations probably continue to treat this as a tick in the box.
Right.
Those organizations still look at the success of trainer as how many hours, man hours of training were conducted, how many
Right.
people got trained, etc. But the best-in-class organizations have moved away from that.
True.
They don't look at learning and development as a tick in the box. They look at it as their tool to drive business excellence, transformation, culture change, and all of that. So best in class organizations are looking at learning and development very, very differently. And also, it depends on how L&D practitioners have transformed themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's equally important. I think many of us are still stuck in the past while the
Right.
whole world has changed.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And like you said, we moved from what was called as training 2 decades ago into what is today called as learning and development. And one of the most essential skills which has been researched for the as the most essential skills of the future is a concept called learning to learn. Right, because like I always say to people in my coaching workshops or in my talks, that most of us go to school and college and we study, we don't learn, because learning is internal, learning is intrinsic, learning is inherent. Studying is external, it's external coercion, pressure for percentage performance. Now those same people who've been trained to study but not to learn are coming to work, and then you're trying to get them into that learning mode. What are the challenges that you see in this? Because in most organizations and with most people that I've worked with, I've realized that for them, growth basically means climbing up the career ladder, the next big promotion, the next big raise. But they don't understand that learning basically means growth, and growth means learning. What are your thoughts and views on this? What are the insights you would like to share on this?
I think this takes us back to very fundamental concepts about motivation. And I think you talked about the fact that learning is intrinsic.
Right.
But if you look at organizations, you find three kinds of people. One set of people are intrinsically motivated to, no matter whatever is the learning ecosystem, the learning infrastructure in their organization, they don't care. They
True.
find their ways and means to learn, and they're passionate about it. They see their sense of purpose. There is another set of people who are extrinsically motivated to learn. They always look for an external motivation.
Right.
Will learning lead to a progression, promotion, a salary increase, a reward,
Right.
recognition,
The carrot
or
and
is
stick.
it, yeah, or will there be some repercussions? Will I lose my job? Will I lose a promotion? They are extrinsically motivated.
Right.
As you said, carrot and stick, that drives their learning. And unfortunately, there's a third category of people who are absolutely not motivated at all.
Right.
I
Right.
think we call them people with the fixed mindset.
Right.
They believe
I call them uncoachable because they've already achieved nirvana and perfection.
they've already achieved nirvana. So they feel this is not going to, this is not going to make any difference. Nothing will change for them. Even if they learn, it's just wastage of time
Right.
and so on. So people who are intrinsically motivated to learn is a very small percentage, maybe
Right.
about 10%. And people who are extrinsically motivated are a significantly large percentage in organizations.
Right.
So the question is, how do we, um, you know, kind of look at that population, which is significantly large, and
Right.
we can't don't change them overnight, but
Right.
we'll have to provide the carrot and stick
Right.
so that they start learning.
Right.
As they keep learning, and when learning becomes second nature, when learning becomes a habit, and slowly they will develop a passion towards learning and
Right.
probably slowly transform themselves into intrinsically motivated learners.
Right. Interesting that you brought this up, because about how people who are intrinsically interested in learning and people who are extrinsically motivated to learn because it will have some kind of reward for them. Because I was discussing this with Mohammad Sirajuddin, who was on the panel last week, and I was I asked him. I said, most of our KRAs are about delivering results which are related to profit. The KRAs are not kind of designed to understand what is a manager or a supervisor doing to invest in people, because that's something which has to happen at all levels, because you need to create that leadership pipeline at all levels. And he said that and interestingly he said that till we don't bring that factor into the KRAs, where we will hold people accountable for the number of leaders and the percentage of leaders that they've developed who can move to the next role or fill up a role which has been kind of vacated recently, right? And what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the KRAs that we have for managers, that we have for employees, does it really factor in the people element?
In most organizations, it does not, and if at all it does, in some cases, probably just lip service.
True.
I think probably in many organizations, the seriousness about this subject is missing.
Right.
You said something very profound. Leaders creating more leaders. If leaders cannot create more leaders, they can't be called leaders
True,
themselves.
absolutely, because they don't need followers. I always say real leaders only create more leaders. I don't need followers. I don't need anybody reporting to me or calling me sir. Just lead yourself. That's it.
Absolutely. I think that's a big challenge. I think some of that thought process and that mindset is also getting into the learning space.
Right.
While businesses are driven by KRAs, which are profitability, operating margin, revenue, etc. Even in many organizations, the KRA for the learning function is also number of people trained and the learning hours and so on.
Mhm.
And sometimes learning and development leaders try to conduct, organize as many training programs they can using the
Right.
budget they have.
Right.
But learning is a very, it's a divine thing. People for learning is an activity that happens inside the brain. So
Right.
we need to create opportunities for people where they can assimilate information, data, visuals, facts. They can process. They can reflect on what they gather. They can create new hypotheses, new ideas. They can test it out. But where we create those opportunities for people in our learning programs, we are
Right.
more focused on conducting sessions and then kind of putting, as you talked about, the tick in the box.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. And that's what I've
Sometimes
noticed. I mean, in the past
leaders
15.
say complete a training program. Well, if the facilitator says, I need to factor some time for reflection, the leaders say, where is the time for reflection?
True. 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 You, you touched a very raw nerve with me, because I sometimes get this very I'll just call them cool, funny briefs from people in HR and OD, and then I use a little slapstick humor to kind of help them to understand that that's not how it works. For example, I get this briefs like, Jerry, take them out whitewater rafting and infuse some passion into them. And I'm like, yeah, okay, where should I buy that passion and infuse it? And if whitewater rafting and offsite games people play build great teams, then every organization would have great teams. And I always joke with them that one team, one dream is a song that they sing in the offsite. But in the corporate trainings, in their annual gatherings, when I ask them, how many of you are from the same team, they all nod, no, 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 we are not from the same team, we are from different teams. And I'm like, you are from one organization. That's the team I'm talking about. And that's the biggest challenge of most organizations, the silos, where everybody is so feudal, guarding their own fiefdoms, that one department does not know what the other department is doing. And because of the silos and disengagement, corporations are losing trillions of dollars every year. What are your thoughts on this?
You're absolutely right. Organizations are operating in silos. Collaboration is not there between functions. Sometimes it is not there within the same function.
True.
That's a real challenge. So I think collaboration is a big challenge. Organizations have not really figured out. Teams are not really functioning, and we understand why teams fail
True.
to click.
True.
But the question is what organizations are doing about it.
True.
There is definitely need to drive culture of collaboration.
Absolutely.
I think learning and development teams can play a very important role there.
True. True. And that's what we are, now kind of a journey we are embarking on. Tangram and the Rex Karmavir Global Fellowship Mission, we are creating this HROD fellowship and awards, and promoting the gold ratings. And my associate JC Desai, who joined, and then she's on in silent mode like a fly on the wall, she's going to share some of her insights and take your insights on that later. And I'm completely with you where you said, we need to create a culture, because it is not just that learning and development can percolate that learning culture across an organization, especially if it's a large organization. It's not possible, which means that you need to have mentors at every level, right? And yet, I mean, the other thing which astounds me is when people in HR and OD ask me, Jerry, do you also coach middle management and junior executives? And I'm like, what does that mean? No, we know many coaches who only work with senior leaders and the top leadership teams. I'm like, seriously, who are those guys? Who are those guys? Because if they're only working with senior leadership teams and top managers and the top leadership team, they're ignoring the guys who really deliver the results, aren't they? What are your thoughts on this? Because I see a lot of coaches who actually kind of put in their LinkedIn profiles that we only work with the top leadership teams and the senior most managers. How does that work? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think coaching is essential across all layers of leadership.
True.
Everybody, no matter wherever you are in the hierarchy, everybody needs to grow and then develop.
True.
It's extremely important for the frontline managers to receive coaching intervention, primarily because they are the conduit or the link between the leadership and the larger organization.
True.
And they are the link, they are the face of the leadership to their people. They are the ones who need to enable people, inspire their people. But if they themselves are not inspired,
True.
how are they going to inspire their team members?
And
So I
you're
think
echoing my sentiments. I always say that if you're not engaged and energized as a manager and as a leader, how will you engage and energize others?
Absolutely. And personally, I believe in today's times, leadership is all about finding, is about three things. It's about finding your balance,
right,
finding your strengths,
right,
and creating impact.
Right.
So in times of contradictions, I mean, if you look at the present times, these are times of contradictions. The
True.
battle between livelihood triggered
True.
by your economy and ecology,
Right.
and people and profits. When all this bad contradictions exist, how do you really find that balance? How do you really keep your calmness and composure?
True.
How do you connect yourself to those balancing factors which will help you stay grounded?
True.
And how do you find your sense of purpose?
True.
And then finding your strength is all about understanding your strengths, understanding your weaknesses, and also finding strengths outside you. Is your strength is not about expertise and talent that you bring to the table.
True.
The sources that are available all around you, the support system. How do you effectively leverage that?
Right.
And eventually, how do you create impact?
Right.
And we need to enable our people to do all the three.
True.
That's important.
True. And I'm very happy you said that, because one of the things that we talk about in our leadership coaching is about how we move from independence to interdependence, and it doesn't stop there. We then move to harmonious coexistence, and I'll show you the life leadership and learning to learn lessons framework that we have created in our Mojosh Inspirator learning and mentoring programs. And I'm very happy that you said that, because it's about finding your balance. Because if you're just managing people and squeezing lemons, is another metaphor that I use. If you're just squeezing lemons and juicing them out only to meet your profits and get those results, the quarterly results, then you're not really growing the organization. And what I've seen is many managers, because they don't understand the concept of investing in people and bringing out the human potential, they only squeeze those lemons to meet those quarterly results, and they're actually making the roots and the foundation of the organizations weak. What are your thoughts on this?
No, absolutely. I mean, I am an eternal optimist. I never give up on people.
True.
On many occasions, I've been beaten up for being an eternal optimist, and then for not giving up on people.
Right.
But that's my nature. And I personally believe that every human being has infinite potential.
Absolutely.
We as
Absolutely.
HR and L&D practitioners and leaders need to understand.
Everything you're saying makes you sound like my long lost brother.
So that's
Mm.
that's what my fundamental belief is. I think it takes us back to what Einstein said years ago, that if you judge the ability of a fish to climb the tree,
Right.
it will live the rest of its life believing that it's stupid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we blame people for not performing. We put them on the wrong job and then say they're not performing.
Right.
We don't provide them the right conditions, right resources, and we tell them that they're not performing.
Right.
We don't inspire them, motivate them, and then we say that they're not motivated.
Right.
I think then what is our responsibility as leaders? Where are we
Absolutely.
spending our time,
Absolutely.
if not with our people?
True. It was Peter Drucker who said culture eats strategy for breakfast many years ago, right? And I remember Drucker in one of his books writes about how the organization hierarchy needs to be inverted, which means that the CEO is not at the top, the CEO is at the bottom, because the frontliners who actually deliver results are on the top. And the CEO's job is to support them, to invest in their potential. Now, everybody quotes Drucker, but this culture has not yet come in, because even when I'm doing visioning and strategy exercises and activities with senior leadership teams, I don't see the people factor being a part of the strategy. And my pushback to them is always that, if the people's capacity is not being built to achieve higher productivity, how do you expect them to give you greater results? And they have no answer, because they have never thought about it, and they've never factored that into their visioning and their strategy. Because even though we talk about the triple bottom line approach and CSR, etc., which is people, planet, and profit, right, and that the profit should come below, not above, right? Forget the planet. You actually see that it's only profit which actually kind of matters to most managers, because they're so business led, so results led, that they forget that it is people who deliver results. What are your thoughts on this?
No, you're right. I think there's a mistake that managers make, and it's nothing wrong to be driven by profits, but as long as one keeps in mind, it's if you take care of people, they will take care of profits.
Absolutely. And I'm correlating this with the insight you shared earlier about how to find your balance, because that balance, I see, and the more senior the manager you are, or the CEO, or the so-called leadership team that they talk about, which is those few people who report to the CEO, they cannot, you use the word being grounded. I don't see them being grounded, because the arrogance is deeply set, and they think that they achieve the results, and don't understand that they are achieving the results because of everybody, because everyone in the organization matters.
Yeah, yeah. I think the CEOs and the senior leaders and in organizations actually need to build. They should not focus on building companies. They should
Right.
focus on building institutions.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that.
So that
Absolutely.
institution building is missing today.
Right.
So in my leadership sessions, I talk to leaders and I tell them, look, your people work for the organization
Right.
and you work for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think once we have that switch in our mind that I work for my people and my people work for the organization,
True.
I think that'd be a very fundamental and strong shift.
Right. And that's how you build a culture of growth, a culture of learning, a culture of trust. And I think one of the biggest factors which people have not understood, managers have not understood, especially the managers who squeeze lemons have not understood, is that when you unleash human potential, productivity and performance and results and profit is automatic.
It's
Would you agree with that?
absolutely. I think research findings tell us that when somebody is motivated, he's 12 times more productive
Absolutely. Absolutely. Inspired.
than he or she would be normally.
Yeah.
So I think that's powerful.
That's yeah, and that brings me to my next thought and insight, which I want to share with you, and then I want to pick your gray cells on that. People in HR, OD, they love this great places to work certificate, right? I actually see them celebrating the day they get it. It's all over LinkedIn, it's all over Facebook, and everything. And with all due respect to great places to work, I believe it's a great rating and good for it. But now you take great places to work and you compare it with the Gallup organization's survey, which is done about people engagement in workplaces. And that survey throws up the crux of that survey, which has been going on for the past 2 decades, is that 85% of people who come to jobs worldwide hate their jobs, right? The percentage went down from 87% to 85% in 2017, which was the 17th or 18th year of the study. Now, this is the Gallup organization which has been doing the study. So the study has its merit and credibility, right? So you take great places to work and you compare it with this 85% of people come to jobs that they hate, and it completely contradicts, right? And then you have Glassdoor, and if you see the Glassdoor comments and feedback which has been given by employees about an organization, it completely thrashes the great places to work rating for that organization. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I personally do not believe in these certifications, and I never go after them. I think if you keep doing good work, some this recognition will come your way.
Right.
That's what I personally believe. And going back to this the Gallup findings that we talked about, I think it also says that a significant percentage of people who are disengaged are actually actively disengaged, which means they are ready to sabotage the organization.
Absolutely. and and
That's,
and,
that's, a
and
huge,
there's a risk factor over there.
that's a huge risk factor there.
Right.
Now the question is if you know, and then organizations have figured out how to hire great talent.
Right. Right.
They have got the best, most scientifically designed assessment, psychometric tests, and then a whole lot of assessments, etc. They bring in the best talent to the organization. If every individual contributes X, and if we hire 500 people, the productivity should be 500x or 750x.
True.
Unfortunately, it's 250x or even lower than that.
True.
And organizations have not figured out, they have figured out how to bring the talent to the workplace every day, but they don't know how
Physically.
to, yes, but how to motivate them
Right.
to become productive, how to motivate them to give their best. I think that's where I believe in the age of the knowledge workers,
Right.
it's not the marketing guy or the technology guy or the business development guy who's going to give direction for today and tomorrow. I think it's the HR and L&D leaders who are going to give direction for the future, because organizations today need to figure out how to motivate their talent, how to retain their talent, how to develop their talent, how to inspire their talent to give their best. I think that's where HR, and L&D, and OD fraternity will play a very significant role.
Right. And I completely agree with you because, one of the reasons that we are creating this goal ratings, as we are calling it, it's GO at the rate of L. GO, that's how we put the A over there. And the idea is great organizations affirm learning. And I always believe that, even if I have 100 people organization or a 200 people organization, I'm not talking about organizations which are 50,000 plus. Even if I have a 200 people organization, as a CEO and as a HR head, I cannot monitor on a day-to-day basis as to how a manager is treating her or his people. But what I can do is percolate a learning culture at all levels, which is what Peter Senge speaks about in the fifth discipline, that a learning organization has learning factored in for people at all levels, including the junior most intern who has just joined you, failing which are not a learning organization, right? And that is where we decided to kind of create something called Great Organizations Affirm Learning, goal ratings, as we are calling them. And I'll come to that when JC is going to kind of take your insights on how we can make that process better. And the reason to create this rating is that we are going in with a very set uh, idea that we need to kind of get this culture of investing in human potential, not just in people, but investing in human potential into this country. Because in this country, especially in our geography, that concept has not seeped in. I've been moderating several HR panels and forums over the years, and this question is always, what should we call it? Should we call it human resource, human capital? And I'm like, can we just call them human beings with human potential? Can we do that? And can we just change this way we're treating them like things or lemons or resources? We're not treating them like people, right? Because it's the people who deliver profits, it's the people who deliver results, it's the people who give you productivity. And if we are not understanding that we need to invest in them, then the organization cannot really grow. And it's probably a matter of time before the organization collapses. And that's what I explain in the simple one line, that management is very important for day-to-day functioning, because management is about functions, procedures, processes, systems, etc., etc. So it's important for day-to-day functioning. If you don't have good management, you will die today. But the peril of most organizations is that they've never created more leaders. And if you don't have good leaders, it's a matter of time before you collapse and die. So you can see that many organizations are falling now because they've not built that leadership pipeline. Infosys in Bangalore is struggling with that. They went out and brought in a superstar called Vishal Sikka, and then 40,000 people, employees, are wondering, why did this person not emerge from within? Why are we looking outside? Right. So this leadership pipeline, which is where we spoke about, how do you kind of make people development intrinsic part of the visioning and strategy for an organization, is very important. And that's what we are trying to percolate through the goal ratings culture. And the other thing I want to ask you is, you spoke about finding your balance, right? And it is very important for managers to meet their targets, to meet their quarterly results, half yearly results, and annual results. But how do you think HR and OD teams can contribute towards helping these managers to find their balance of not only kind of focusing on profits but also focusing on people? What are your best practices that you have seen in your journey of the past 2 decades in organizations where you worked or where you kind of counseled? What are the best practices that you think which can be incorporated into organizations for management to employ?
I think it begins with the CEO of the organization. It
Right.
is, in a way, top down. The leaders need to walk the talk. We cannot expect managers to find that balance between profits and people when the CEO and the CXO only talk about profits.
True. Very nice. I like that.
So that's the most important thing.
Okay.
So they have to walk the talk.
Right.
They
Right.
have to reinforce that.
Right.
And aspects of people need to be embedded into the balance scorecard.
Right.
People are measured, leaders are measured for diversity, for new leaders they develop, and so on. The leadership pipeline they build, um, diversity and inclusion within their teams and functions. I think what gets measured gets done.
True.
So it's important that we need to have those measurements as well. And we need to kind of drive this in letter and spirit. I think just driving it for the sake of driving it superficially, just to publish to the external world, is not going to help. I think that
True,
that seriousness has to be there.
true,
Leaders
true,
will have to lead by example.
true.
So I was in one of the panels where uh, in in, a, in one of the HR conferences where a leader from an Indian company was narrating a great example. Um, he was talking about a lady who was due for promotion, um, was also going on her maternity leave, and her manager calls her and then says, "Hey, here is your promotion, and here is your new role. This is what you're going to, take. You won't take up this role when you come back from your maternity leave." And then the lady was surprised. He said, "Well, this is an important role. I'm going on maternity leave. I'm away for the next few months, but the organization still has trust in me, and then I really respect the practices they have and the seriousness, the genuineness that they demonstrate in walking the talk." I think these are great examples, and so I think leaders will have to not only talk about the values, they will have to live the values. To a great extent, I think it'll emanate from them, and also the culture of reinforcement, storytelling, taking these stories across the organization, celebrating and recognize leaders who demonstrate this. I think these are some of the best practices which can drive, um, this culture that we are talking about.
Right. Right. It was Richard Branson who said, train your people so well, invest in their training so well that they can go out and find other jobs. And then he also said, treat them so well that they don't want to leave and find other jobs. And yet, I mean, people like quoting all these quotes on their LinkedIn profiles, etc. But somehow that mindset has not transformed. That mindset has not changed. And what you are speaking about is a huge mindset transformation which is needed at the CEO level, and that's what we have done in the goal rating. I must share this with you, Brother Surya, that in the goal rating, we have said it's not just the HR and OD head and the teams who can create this learning culture. The CEO has to be very, very integrally involved in that. And I'm so happy to see that you echo my sentiments in what you're saying. You know, and finally, I'm just going to ask you to, share some of the best practices that you've seen in OD in your tenure in learning and development, and maybe even beyond that when you were in business development.
Well, I think one of the best practices that I would like to talk about is leaders as teachers or managers as teachers.
Very nice.
This is a very powerful concept, and many leaders or many organizations don't understand the importance of this. External facilitators or even trained internal facilitators may be great in facilitation. They may be great at facilitating and delivering sessions. But the real experiences, the success stories, the stories of successes and failures will come from the leaders.
Absolutely.
When they come and do storytelling, when they share powerful stories, this can be very, very impactful. Sometimes a 1 hour session, storytelling session by a leader can be equivalent to a 2 year MBA program.
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
can be
And that's what I do in my books. They're called the Karma Kari series. We tell stories of very ordinary people like Dashrath Manji, the man who moved the mountain, or Subhashini Mistry, a domestic house help who's built a huge hospital. And we in our leadership program, I'm just going to pull up some slides now because you're completely singing the same tune as me. And this is what Peter Senge said. Uh, you know, that the central theme of the fifth discipline is that members to learn at all levels of the organization. And what we have done is we have a series of books, right, from women to even people from the LGBTQ community who are featured in our books, right? And now we just launched the Karma Kari Kid Power book last week. So these are stories of children with powerful insights and lessons for parents, for parents, for teachers and managers and leaders. That's what the book cover says. And I was telling you about the framework that we've created. This is the learning framework that you will see. It starts from understanding your vulnerability, which most managers don't understand, that they are as vulnerable as the weakest member of their team. You are as good a manager as the weakest member of your team, because if you've not brought that person up to speed, then your team is not strong, it is weak. And we talk about how to move from dependence to harmonious coexistence. And this is the culture that we have also kind of included in the great organizations affirm learning ratings, goal ratings that make building a learning culture should be the most integral goal of any and every organization. Because if you harness and unleash human potential, your profits will quadruple. They may even go beyond the 250x or 750x that you spoke about. And I think that mindset has to kind of be created with managers at all levels, including the new interns and the new recruits. And finally, I'm going to ask you, before JC speaks to you more about the goal rating. JC is already here. JC Desai is from Tangram Research, and Tangram is a organization of very seasoned, senior, experienced researchers, and they are partners for the entire goal ratings. So JC, that's Surya Mohapatra for you. And I'm just going to conclude with this one final question. I started by asking you and telling you that you're as passionate about learning as I am. And I'm going to ask you the final question, which is, what inspired you to start this learning and development network as a volunteer, while you have a day job and you have so many other activities that you need to pay attention to? What inspired you to take on this additional headache and burden of creating this network of 30,000 people from learning and OD from across geographies, across cultures, and across different disciplines? What is that inspiration? What is that passion all about?
Well, I think the passion was about creating a community.
Very nice.
And while sometimes people talk about associations, industry bodies, etc., I felt that creating a community is extremely powerful idea. And when we create a community, and when people come together to collaborate, co-create, and contribute, possibilities are infinite. And I personally believe that leaders across ranks, across industries or social sectors or political or other domains need to create communities. I think it's an important leadership attribute. And the whole core idea of collaborations comes from community. The indomitable power of community can drive collaboration. It can drive co-creation, and it can drive immense contribution to the society, to the industry, to the nation as a whole. I think it's that passion to create a community drove me to create this this forum called L&D Global.
Very
and we
nice.
started small, but has grown fairly big today, beyond expectations. And
I'm so happy to understand the passion and the commitment that has gone